Thank you all for watching the Shakaama Live Show with your host, Shakaama. I briefly want to talk about the crime stats that people keep repeating. So I believe it was like Gehring that said, if you repeat a lie, if you make a lie, if you repeat it often enough, people will believe it. Okay, so there's a crime, supposedly there's a crime stat that says that black people commit 50% of all violent crimes. Okay, all right. When you go to the raw data, not of crime, but if you go into the raw population data and you look at the actual population of black people, and then you look at the relative crime data of black people, there's not enough black people in the United States to make that statement that black people that commit 50% of all violent crimes true. So you can't have a tiny population of black people and have this massive statement saying that black people commit 50% of all violent crimes. You see, wimpy, wimpy, hefty, right? So then in my study and research into the Illuminati stuff, I came across a statement by a very reliable source that said that it is Hollywood that is perpetuating all of this racism, all of this white supremacy, all of this bigotry, all of this prejudice, and everything about the war on the black man. They are the ones who are behind all of that. So anytime you hear a statement about the FBI put out, it's impossible that the FBI, the true blue FBI, until you realize this, the FBI was behind the assassination of Martin Luther King. They were behind the assassination of not Louis Farrakhan, what's his name? Malcolm X. They're behind the assassination of Kennedy. They're behind the assassination. I mean, just over and over and over. It's the FBI. So now you start to go, huh? Well, if the FBI is so dastardly, perhaps, just perhaps, they're not to be trusted on crime data. And of course, what is the thing? How are people using this stat? The only time people repeat this stat is when they want to castigate black people. So, they're not talking about crime statistics. They're castigating black people. Black people are 50% of all violent crimes. Are you trying to be nice to black people? What is this topic of discussion? The topic of discussion is hating on black people. And this is why I don't like Louder Crowder. I don't like Media Fire. I don't like the Canadian guy. What's his name? Gavin McInnes. I don't like any of these people because they don't take the time to actually do 2 more seconds of research. Anybody with a brain, any intellectual, anybody who calls himself a thinking man would take 2 more seconds to say, I just, something tells me it's impossible that this tiny, because what? 1%, not even 1%, less than 1% of the black population are in the judicial system. I'm talking about the entire system. They have, no matter what we're talking about jaywalking. We're talking about parking tickets. Less than 1% of the black population is involved in the judicial system. Okay, if that's true, and the black population is now 10% of the population, did you know that? The black population is now 10%. They're no longer 15%. They're no longer 14%. They're 10% of the population. Well, then it's impossible for that other stat to be true. You can't have a minuscule population set, that is, all criminals in the black population, commit 50% of all violent crimes. Well, let's take a look at let's go deep into that stat itself. Do you think the judicial system is going to let black people go? No. We already know that black people get larger, longer, more severe sentences than all other races, right? And I think it's Gavin McKenna says, that's not evidence of racism. And Ben Shapiro said that too. That's not evidence of racism. Well, only a racist, only a bigot, only a president, only a white supremacist would even formulate those words. Because it's impossible to objectively look at that statement and not say there is definitely something wrong here. Definitely. Okay, so let's take a look at that. What are black people going to jail for? What are they being sentenced for? Are they being sentenced for violent crime? No. 75% of all black men in the judicial system are there for, actually sentenced, sitting in jail, are there for simple marijuana possession. 75%. Now, we're talking about the other 25%. I'm going to guess that a large portion of that 25% are for other drugs. Why? Because the war on drugs is paramount to anything else as far as crime goes, right? So a big chunk of that 25% remainder is about other drugs. Then whatever is left over then encapsulates violent crimes, extortion, burglary. I don't consider burglary a violent crime. I don't believe it's a violent crime. Anything not violent, right? So violent crime, I believe, would be a small percentage of the remainder, which I'm going to say probably guesses probably 2%. 75% marijuana, 23% all other drug charges, criminal charges. I'm going to guess that the rest, the remainder, are 2% of all of the black men in jail. Now, 2% of the 1% who are criminals in the black community, which makes for less than 1% of the entire population of the United States, because we're only dealing with 10% of the population. If we then extrapolate down to 1%, it's 1% of 10%. What's 1% of 10%? It's literally whatever the factor is, 0.01, right? Right, you understand that? So how is it then that we are, and we broke down that 1% into 75% being there for simple marijuana possession? This is all math, right? This is all math. This is all simple math. So what I'm telling you is true. 75% of the black men in jail there for marijuana. True. Fact. Data. Fact. By definition, that means that it's impossible for the 22% is other drug charges and the 2% that's left over from that be all other crimes. And I'm going to say probably 0.1 of that is violent crimes. That black men are going to jail at a number of 0.1% for violent crimes. Does 0.1% of 1% of all black criminals equal to 50% of all violent crimes? No, it's impossible. Point blank, it's impossible. Then you don't even have to look at that. You simply look at, what are white men going to jail for? White men are going there to jail for violent crimes. Not marijuana, not meth. And in fact, there is data that says that white men are very often completely excused for drugs when they enter through the court systems. Excused. Don't want to hear it, don't care, whatever. Black men go straight to jail. Drugs. And we've had many politicians say that it's the best thing to get black men off the street anyway. Drugs. So, if white men are sitting in jail, you don't have to believe my 50% thing is a lie. Just look at the data. If white men are sitting there for violent crimes, it has to be a lie that black men commit 50% of all violent crimes. It's simple math, especially when you have the raw data sitting in front of you. What are they in jail for? What are they being sentenced for? So where does this come from? I do not believe it came from the FBI. Well, okay, even if it does come from the FBI, it is Illuminati lies. Thank you for watching the United States. Thank you. Thank you for watching the Shakaama Live Show. I don't know why the United States came up. Thank you for watching the Shakaama Live Show. Please donate to my channel, patreon.com/Shakaama. Oh, and like the video. Always like the video, right?